The rain lashed against the windows of our small cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Elara and I had built a life here, brick by brick, memory by memory. I was a software engineer, content with my quiet life, my coding, and my wife. Elara, with her vibrant spirit and infectious laughter, was everything I wasn't. Or so I thought. I knew her. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Elara, usually an open book, became guarded. Her phone, once carelessly left on the kitchen counter, was now clutched like a precious jewel, face down, notifications silenced. She'd spend hours in the garden shed, supposedly working on her pottery, but the rhythmic whir of the wheel was often replaced by hushed phone calls and nervous giggles. I dismissed it at first. Maybe she was planning a surprise party for my upcoming 45th birthday. Maybe she was reconnecting with old friends. Maybe I was just being paranoid, a middle-aged man clinging to the illusion of control. But the feeling persisted, a gnawing unease that burrowed deeper with each passing day. Her eyes, once sparkling with affection, now seemed to hold a distant, almost pitying gaze. Intimacy became a chore, a perfunctory act devoid of passion. She would turn away in bed, feigning sleep, leaving me adrift in a sea of unanswered questions. One Tuesday, Elara mentioned she had a late meeting with a client in Oxford. She was a freelance interior designer, and such meetings were not uncommon, but something about her tone felt off, rehearsed. I decided to surprise her by picking her up from the train station. I arrived early, parked the car, and waited. The train pulled in, disgorging its weary passengers. I scanned the crowd, my heart quickening with anticipation. And then I saw her. Elara, hand in hand with a man I'd never seen before. He was younger, taller, with a confident swagger that made my stomach churn. They walked towards a sleek black car, laughing, their bodies pressed close. It was then I noticed the way she looked at him, a gaze filled with adoration and desire, a gaze she hadn't directed at me in years, the world tilted on its axis. The blood drained from my face, leaving me lightheaded and nauseous. I watched, paralyzed, as they drove off, the image seared into my memory. My wife, the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was cheating on me. The realization hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath and leaving me gasping for air. I drove home in a daze, the rain now a relentless torrent, blurring the world into an indistinguishable mess. I stumbled into the house, the familiar surroundings now alien and hostile. Every photo, every memento, every shared memory felt like a cruel mockery, a testament to the lies we had built our life upon. I couldn't confront her, not yet. I needed proof, something concrete to shatter her carefully constructed facade. I remembered her pottery shed. Perhaps in her haste she had left something behind, a clue to unravel her deceit. The shed was cold and damp, smelling of clay and forgotten dreams. I rummaged through her belongings, my hands trembling. I found old paintbrushes, half-finished projects, and a dusty box of photographs. Then, tucked away in a corner, I saw it, a small, leather-bound journal. My heart pounded in my chest as I opened it, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold the book. The journal was a chronicle of their affair, a sordid tale of stolen moments and whispered promises. She wrote about the thrill of the forbidden, about how he made her feel alive again. She described their rendezvous in Oxford, their secret dinners, their passionate nights together. Each entry was a dagger twisting in my heart, confirming my worst fears and shattering the last vestiges of my hope. I read on, my eyes burning with tears of rage and despair. She had been planning to leave me, to start a new life with this man, this interloper who had stolen my wife and my happiness. She had even discussed selling the cottage, the home we had built together, the place where we had promised to grow old together. The final entry was dated just yesterday. "Tonight," she wrote, "I'm going to tell Bertram I'm leaving him. It's time for me to be happy, to be with the man I truly love, Bertram." That was me. I was Bertram, and my wife, the woman I had loved and trusted, was about to destroy everything we had built together. The anger surged through me, a tidal wave of righteous fury. I wanted to confront her, to scream at her, to demand an explanation. But I knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. She would lie, she would manipulate, she would try to twist the narrative to her advantage. No, I decided. I would play her game. I would let her believe she was in control, that she had me fooled. And then, when she least expected it, I would unleash my revenge. I closed the journal, my mind racing. I needed a plan, a way to expose her betrayal and reclaim my life. I thought about calling her lover, about telling his wife, about ruining his career. But that would be too easy, too predictable. I wanted to inflict a deeper wound, to shatter her carefully constructed world and leave her with nothing. I returned to the house, my face a mask of calm. I found Elara in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. She glanced at me, a flicker of guilt in her eyes, but quickly masked it with a saccharine smile. "How was your day, darling?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Fine," I replied, my voice flat. "Just fine." That night I pretended to be oblivious, to be the same devoted husband I had always been. I listened patiently as she recounted her meeting in Oxford, nodding sympathetically at her carefully constructed lies. I even made love to her, my body recoiling at her touch, my mind filled with images of her and her lover. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to lull her into a false sense of security, to make her believe that her secret was safe. The next morning, I woke up early and went to my study. I spent the next few hours meticulously documenting her affair. I printed out copies of her journal entries, photographs of her and her lover, and records of their phone calls and text messages. I compiled everything into a comprehensive dossier, a damning indictment of her betrayal. Then I contacted a lawyer, a ruthless divorce attorney known for her aggressive tactics and unwavering loyalty to her clients. I explained my situation, showed her the evidence, and instructed her to file for divorce, citing adultery as the grounds. I wanted everything: the house, the savings, the assets. I wanted to leave her with nothing, to make her pay for the pain she had inflicted on me. That evening I waited for Elara to come home. She arrived around 7 p.m., her face flushed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I have something to tell you, Bertram," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I know," I replied, my voice calm and steady. She looked at me, confused. "What do you mean, you know?" "I know about him, Elara," I said, my eyes locking onto hers. "I know about your affair." Face paled, her eyes widening in horror. How did you find out?" she stammered. I didn't answer. Instead, I handed her the dossier, the irrefutable evidence of her betrayal. She stared at it, her hands shaking, her face crumbling. "Bertram, I can explain," she pleaded, her voice cracking with desperation. "There's nothing to explain, Elara," I said, my voice cold and unforgiving. "It's over. I've filed for divorce. You can pack your things and leave. I never want to see you again." She burst into tears, begging for forgiveness, promising to end the affair, swearing that she still loved me. But I was unmoved. Her words were empty, hollow echoes of a love that had never truly existed. I had given her everything, and she had repaid me with betrayal and deceit. She didn't deserve my forgiveness. She didn't deserve anything. I watched as she packed her belongings, her sobs echoing through the empty house. She looked pathetic, a broken woman stripped of her illusions and her lies. And for a brief moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But it quickly passed, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. As she walked out the door, she turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and regret. "You'll regret this, Bertram," she said, her voice venomous. "You'll never find anyone who loves you like I did." "Doubt that," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "But even if I don't, I'd rather be alone than with someone who is capable of such betrayal." I closed the door behind her, locking her out of my life forever. The house was silent, empty, and filled with the ghosts of our shattered dreams. But I didn't care. I was free. Free from her lies, free from her deceit, free to start a new chapter in my life. The divorce was swift and brutal. My lawyer, true to her word, left Elara with nothing. She lost the house, the savings, and her reputation. Her lover, unwilling to face the consequences of his actions, dumped her, leaving her alone and destitute. I sold the cottage and moved to a small apartment in London. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the logic and order of code. I started taking evening classes, learning new skills and meeting new people. I even started dating again, cautiously, tentatively, but with a newfound sense of optimism. It wasn't easy. The pain of Elara's betrayal lingered, a dull ache in my heart, but I refused to let it define me. I refused to let her steal my happiness. I was a survivor, a warrior who had emerged from the ashes of heartbreak stronger and wiser than before. One day, a few years later, I received a letter. It was from Elara. She wrote about her struggles, about her regrets, about how she had lost everything because of her affair. She begged for my forgiveness, not for herself, but for the sake of our shared past. I read the letter, my heart unmoved. I had forgiven her long ago, not for her sake, but for my own. I had moved on, I had built a new life, and I had no room for bitterness or resentment. I threw the letter in the trash, a final act of closure. Elara was a chapter in my life that was now closed, a painful memory that had faded with time. I was Bertram, a man who had been betrayed but who had refused to be broken. And I was finally truly happy. Years later, I was at a gallery opening in Shoreditch, admiring the bold strokes of a young artist's canvas. I recognized a familiar face across the room. It was Corinne, a woman I'd met at a coding conference. We struck up a conversation, and I learned she was a divorcee who had also experienced betrayal. We found solace in our shared experiences, and soon, one date led to another. Corinne was kind, intelligent, and fiercely independent. She understood my past and didn't judge me for it. She helped me to see that betrayal doesn't define a person, but rather shapes them into someone stronger and more resilient. Eventually, we married in a small ceremony overlooking the Thames, surrounded by friends and family who had supported us through thick and thin. I realized that life had a funny way of working out, even after the darkest of times. Elara's betrayal had initially shattered my world, but it had also paved the way for me to find a love that was built on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. I learned that true happiness wasn't about erasing the past, but about embracing the future with an open heart. My life is good now. I have a loving wife, a fulfilling career, and a sense of peace that I never thought possible. Elara is a distant memory, a cautionary tale that reminds me of the importance of integrity and trust in a relationship. And as I look back on the events that led to my divorce, I can honestly say that I am grateful for the experience. It made me who I am today, a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate man. I hope my story serves as a reminder that even in the face of the most devastating betrayal, it is possible to find healing and happiness. Don't let the actions of others define you. Embrace your pain, learn from your mistakes, and never give up on the possibility of finding love again. The rain has stopped now, and the sun is shining through the clouds. The world is washed clean, renewed, and full of hope. And so am I. Summary. Bertram, a software engineer living a quiet life in the Cotswolds with his wife Elara, discovers she is having an affair. The revelation shatters his world, leading him to meticulously document her betrayal and seek a divorce. Despite the pain and heartbreak, Bertram resolves to reclaim his life. He divorces Elara, who is abandoned by her lover and left with nothing. Bertram moves to London, focuses on his career, and eventually finds love again with Corinne. He learns to forgive, not for Elara's sake, but for his own peace. His story is a testament to resilience and the possibility of finding happiness after betrayal. Remember, dear reader, even after the darkest storms, the sun will eventually shine again. Embrace your pain, learn from your experiences, and never give up on the possibility of a brighter future.